Encore is part of the standard 5 stars, and even though she is one of the strongest DPS at the moment of the game's release, there's a lot of misinformation about her going around, such as her being difficult to play. Encore is a Rectifier-Welding Fusion DPS who excels at dealing high amounts of damage during her ultimate window. We will cover her kit, her best weapons, echoes and echo sets, her best teams, her sequence nodes and how to play her correctly. Let's go! Encore has a 4-part basic attack, which can be extended to a 5th hit with Woolly Strike. While Woolly does quite some damage, you will rarely get to use this, as her basic attacks outside her ultimate stance cannot actually parry, well, aside from her plunge. The key to successfully playing Encore is to minimize your field time outside her ultimate window and effectively swap between your party members to parry with them instead of Encore, while generating enough energy to get back into her ultimate as soon as possible. And her skill is what will help us achieve that. Her skill can be cast twice in succession, generates around 15 energy and 20 concerto when done so, is on a 10-second cooldown and deals actually quite a bit of damage. However, as already mentioned, her kit revolves around her ultimate, and her Resonance Liberation is where she becomes interesting. With a cost of 125 energy and a 16 seconds cooldown, the ultimate itself does not do any damage. However, it has you enter the Cosmos Rave stance for 10 seconds, during which all of your abilities are transformed. These 10 seconds are your main window of damage, and getting your ultimate back as soon as possible is integral for successfully playing Encore. While her usually basic attacks are ranged and, as already mentioned, cannot parry, during Cosmos Rave she becomes melee and can actually start parrying. Her forte is built around a resource called Dissonance. Doing basically anything, you will accumulate dissonance, and if you cast her heavy attack when you are at full dissonance, Encore will cast either Cloudy Frenzy or Cosmic Rupture. You will likely never use this outside your ultimate, as the cast time is incredibly long, and even though it can be swap cancelled, the damage dealt by Cosmic Rupture is just that much higher. In addition to the damage, Encore also enters the Cosmos Dissonance state, which reduces her damage taken by 70%. However, there is a catch, which is not mentioned anywhere in her kit. Entering the Dissonance state will actually exit her ultimate stance, Cosmic Rave. This means we always and only want to cast this right before Cosmic Rave ends. However, we will get back to that a little bit later. Her intro and outro skill are both damage centered and do exactly that, deal damage. Her inherent skills Angry Cosmos and Woolly's Cheer Dance grant you basically 10% more damage bonus or fusion damage bonus if you cast a resonance skill respectively. Knowing what her crit looks like and looking at the damage distribution, we can see that we should definitely put all priority on basic attacks. Just kidding, actually not really. You will basically never actually use your normal basic attacks. The damage dealt by her basic attacks are all during her ultimate window, which means leveling our Resonance Liberation first and foremost will grant us the most damage. Hence the final skill priority is ultimate into skill into forte into basic attack equals intro. Let's cover her echoes. Encore has the unfortunate problem of being fusion. That also means, as of right now, we do not really have a great echo to choose from and are left with the Inferno Rider. While he does some great damage, well, if he actually hits, and grants you 12% fusion and basic attack damage bonus, his animation takes quite a while and it cannot really be effectively cancelled. This means we are locked into a 2.8 second animation of basically looking cool. This lowers her DPS substantially, but we need the Resonance Liberation energy and Concerto energy generated from the Inferno Rider. Technically speaking, the Geohide Saurian is another option I want to bring up, and while it makes her gameplay smoother, you will need to change your rotation slightly and incorporate 2 additional basic attacks to make up for that. For her set, a 5-piece Molten Rift is her best in slot, but depending on your available sub and main stats, mix matching a 2-piece Molten Rift and 2-piece Lingering Tunes is another great option, only costing you around 8 to 9% DPS. But again, that is only if all your sub and main stats would be the exact same. The 5-piece Lingering Tunes is another option, however it would also require you to either use the Mech Abomination or the Flautist instead of the Inferno Rider, which is a further DPS use. Let's cover the stats. For her main stats, crit rate on her Forecast Echo is the best option, followed by crit damage. Attack percent is quite a DPS loss, however better than none. For the 3-cost Echoes, double fusion is her best onslaught, but mix matching fusion and attack percent or even double attack percent are possible, even though you might lose out on a little bit of damage. Encore has an energy regeneration requirement of around 10 to 25% depending on your team. You can easily cover this with 1 to 3 substat rolls. And again, depending on your team, you might need a little bit more or a little bit less. Until then, our substat priority will be energy regeneration until around 10 to 25%, into crit rate / crit damage, into attack percent, into basic attack damage percent, and lastly flat attack. For her weapon, if you happen to get your hands on Yinlin's signature and don't have Yinlin or get the weapon twice, String Master is her best in slot by about 17 to 20%, depending on your stats. Cosmic Ripples is her next best, followed by the Battle Pass weapon Augment. If you are really starved on 4 stars rectifiers or don't have a 5-star one, an R5 Rectifier of Night will also do a fine job, although at this point you are already losing out on about 25% damage. Adding everything up, these are the final endgame stat goals I personally would recommend. That said, let's have a look at her sequences. Her sequences overall are not the greatest, and you can expect a damage increase of around 25 to 30% going from S0 to S6. Her most standout sequence nodes are S3, S4 and S6. S3 increases the damage dealt by her Resonance Liberation, Cosmos Rupture, you know that 4-second channel. Her S4 is a team-wide 30-second long 20% fusion damage buff whenever you do cast said Rupture, and her S6 gives her a stacking attack percent buff on auto attacks. Out of these, her best sequence is her S4, as it not only applies to her but to the entire team. Having all that covered, we can now finally dive into her rotation. Her main window of damage is during her ultimate, and the rotation does reflect that as well. Starting off, we go intro into echo into a single cast of her skill Flaming Woolies into her ultimate. Casting her ultimate does actually replace her skill and hence also resets the cooldown. Now we can continue with another skill cast, Cosmos Rampage, into 4 basics, into another skill, into 4 more basics, into another quick skill cast, and we do end the rotation with her 4th Rupture, which we channel by casting her heavy attack while being at full dissonance. It is very important that you do swap cancel the Rupture, as she will continue channeling for quite a while and hence slightly delays the damage dealt by the Rupture. The time window for this rotation is actually very tight, and it is not necessarily realistic to follow this exact rotation all the time. If you need to save time, for example because you did a dodge, you can sacrifice the last 4th basic attack as long as you get to cast her Forter while she's still in her Cosmos Rave. Again, that is the ultimate stance. Now you spend around 4 seconds on your support or hybrid carry and switch back to Encore for a double cast skill. Switch her out again directly after that and spend the remaining 10 seconds on your other party members again. As soon as you can re-enter with your intro skill for Encore, you switch her in, go for a double cast of her skill and repeat the ultimate rotation. Well, except for the initial skill cast since you just used it now twice instead. However, I can see this rotation being a little bit difficult to pull off, especially for more casual players. In that case, you can sacrifice some damage for more ER on your substats. Around 20% more would allow you to sacrifice 1 double skill cast. Another option would be to use Yang Yang as an energy funnel, and speaking of that, we can actually start and cover the teams. Fortunately, there aren't many great teams for Encore right now. Her best team is likely with Sanhua and Verena. Verena for obvious reasons, as she is a very generic support which can be used in every team. Sanhua grants her 38% basic attack damage deepen, the buff from the Moonlit Cloud 5-piece and from the Impermanence Heron, granting her a total damage increase of around 30%. If you happen to have your hands on a sequence 6 Sanhua and add Verena to the mix, we end up at a total damage gain of around 80%. And if you really like Chixiar and you do also have her S6 as well as the static mist weapon on her, you could also use Chixiar instead of Sanhua. However, the total damage gain is around 20% lower than what Sanhua would provide. As we are really tight on possible teammates for her, Rover is another possible option, as is Yang Yang. However, please keep in mind none of these are actually really good as her teammates, but we kinda want to work with what Kuro gave us, not like we have a choice anyway, at least at the time of release. Yang Yang does have the advantage of being able to funnel energy to Encore, which allows her to skip all of her ER requirements, or you can skip a double cast instead. A possible rotation with Yang Yang support would be full Encore ultimate rotation into Yang Yang rotation. Then outro back into Encore, double cast your skill, switch to Sanhua, do your full Sanhua combo into outro back into Encore and repeat. Encore is unfortunately a unit which will need a good future hybrid resonator for fusion basic attack based DPS characters to buff her while also being able to fill her 10-second downtime in between skill casts. Until then, her team options will be a little bit limited. However, in the end, play whoever you like, you do not have to abide by meta or whatever or the best teams, and just enjoy and have fun. That all being said, thank you so much for watching, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and have a great day. Peace!